May we?
Yes.
Thank you.
Blood all over it.
I,
I,
your name,
Martin Sanabria,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will uphold
that I will uphold
the Constitution
the Constitution
of the United States of America
of the United States of America
and the Constitution
and the Constitution
of the State of New Jersey,
of the State of New Jersey,
and furthermore,
and furthermore,
I will objectively,
I will objectively,
impartially,
impartially,
and to the best of my ability,
to the best of my ability,
administer
administer
the admissible land use statute of the State of New Jersey
the municipal land use statute of the State of New Jersey
and the ordinances
and the ordinances
of the Township of Belleville,
of the Township of Belleville,
so help me God.
so help me God.
Congratulations. Marty, good. My turn.
Lois, can you read the statement of certification of meeting?
Yes, certification meeting has been advertised according to Sunshine Law.
Please call the roll.
Mr. De Niro,
Here.
Mr. Zangri, Mrs. Inalberato,
Here.
Councilman Kennedy.
Here.
Mr. Conti,
Here.
Mr. Walsh.
Here.
Mrs. Shore, Mr. Medikini, Mr. Bowl,
Here.
Mr. Sanabria,
Here.
Ms. Rico,
Here.
Mr. Harris, Mr. DiBiase,
Here.
Mr. Di Lorenzo.
Here. Can I have a motion for the approval of the minutes from the August 10, 2017 meeting?
So moved.
Second. Close call roll.
Mr. De Niro,
Yes.
Mrs. Inalberato,
Yes.
Councilman Kennedy,
Yes.
Mr. Conti,
Yes.
Mr. Walsh,
Yes.
Mr. Bowe,
No more.
Mr. Sanabria,
Yes.
Ms. Rico.
Yes.
Chairman's comments? No comment at this time. Correspondence and payment of bills. Anybody have any questions or comments they'd like to make? If not, is there anything under old business that needs to be brought up? New business. We have redevelopment study and preliminary investigation report for 78-102 Washington Avenue, PB 2017-04.
Mr. Chairman, may I be heard on that, on the procedural matter?
Yes.
Council, please step forward.
Good evening.
Please give your name and address.
Sean McGowan, as attorney at Bertone Ticini, counsel for the property owner.
Council, is it fair to say that Mr. Di Lorenzo and I had a conference with you, a procedural conference with you just before the meeting started?
That's correct.
And is it fair to say that you and your client are making a determination if your client wants to appear in front of the Board of Adjustment to ask for extensions of the approval, or if you may take another position on this? Is that fair?
We would like some time to evaluate to make that decision.
Right. And you're asking that this matter be carried for 30 days until October meeting?
That's correct.
Right. Let's find out if our expert who's here this evening and was prepared to go forward can make the October meeting.
Yes, I can.
You can?
Yes.
Thank you for that. Mr. Chairman, I wonder if it would be appropriate for you to ask for a motion from the board members to carry this matter until the October meeting.
Someone like to make a motion to carry this application to the next meeting?
I'll make the motion to carry over the redevelopment study and preliminary investigation report for 78 Washington Avenue, PB 2017-04 till October 12th, 2017.
And Mr. Chairman, as a further point, just coincidentally, the chairman of the Board of Adjustment was kind enough to appear this evening, and he actually received a letter that council sent to the chairman of the Board of Adjustment. We all have copies of that. I would ask the chairman if he would be available for next month to come in case further action is taken on this, or if any dialogue takes place between the applicant and you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, I have no problem. I don't have nothing on my schedule as of now, let's put it that way.
Thank you so much for that, Curtis.
You're welcome. However, I want to make something clear.
I think it'd probably be appropriate to do that next month since they're carrying the matter.
I understand that, but what I'm saying is...
Well,
if
come on
they-
up, Mr. Chairman.
All right.
Okay. Let's swear you in.
Okay.
And the board should know that the chairman and I did speak before the meeting, and I think the information that the chairman has is relevant.
Please raise your right hand.
Yes, ma'am.
Swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Yes.
State your name for the record.
Attilio Jerry Delgertia, I live at 8 Grove Street in Belleville, and I'm the chairman of the zoning board. Two things. I didn't expect this to come up, but if this does come up, and they decide, based upon the letter that everybody received, that they're going to ask for an extension, I believe it may not be able to be put on for the October zoning board meeting, which is a week before yours.
Sure.
And the second thing, last month, when the planner was giving testimony, some confusion came up about whether it was approved for 2 or 3 years, or what was supposed to be approved. I consulted with our zoning board attorney, and he says, well, the 3 years has to do with a preliminary site plan. You gave a final site plan. That's 2 years. And they could ask for 3 one-year extensions. So just to clear that up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome.
We need someone to second the motion.
Second.
Lois, call the roll.
Mr. De Niro.
Yes.
Mrs. Inalderado.
Yes.
Councilman Kennedy.
You know, I'm going to vote yes on this, but this sounds like another project that's never going to get built.
Mr. Conti.
Yes.
Mr. Walsh.
Yes.
Mr. Bowe.
Yes.
Mr. Sanabria.
Yes.
Ms. Rico.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to recuse myself for the next application.
I need a chair.
All right, we'll hear the application for the board, which is PB 2013-02, 11 Franklin Avenue.
Good evening. Lisa John Sabasta with the law firm Chiesa, Shahinian, and Jansamasi on behalf of the applicant 11 Franklin Developer LLC. Tonight we have presented before you an application for a 4-lot subdivision and site plan approval related to property located at 11 Franklin Avenue, Block 2301, Lot 1. Just a little background for the board. In 2013, this property was declared an area in need of redevelopment. Shortly thereafter, a redevelopment plan called the Roach Diagnostic Redevelopment Plan was adopted, which is the governing zoning for the property. In 2016, there was an amendment to that redevelopment plan, which is the last amendment to date. And in 2016 as well, our client was designated the redeveloper of the property by the Township Council. Tonight, our application is for a 4-lot subdivision, as I said. 2 of the lots are proposed for development at this point in time. One of them will be for a self-storage facility. The other is for a pharmacy with drive-through. Just for a point of clarification, originally when we submitted the application in July of this year, there was a request for site plan approval related to a Wawa convenience store with fueling pumps. We have withdrawn our request for that site plan relief by letter dated August 3rd, addressed to the board. So tonight, we're here for the subdivision and site plan related to the two uses I stated. The uses are in conformance with the redevelopment plan, and on September 12th, 2 days ago, the council adopted a resolution which certified that the plans before you this evening are in conformance with the redevelopment plan as well as the redevelopment agreement that was entered into between our client and the township. That redevelopment agreement also does contemplate a full development of the site, but it allows for the site to be developed in phases. So tonight, we're here for just a portion of that development. We are also a fully conforming site plan application with no variances or waivers requested or needed. Tonight, just for point of order, we intend to call 4 witnesses. Our first is Chris Richter, who is the development manager of Avison Young. We have our civil engineer, Fred Kopitz, and our architect, Chuck Dees, and traffic engineer, Justin Taylor. With that, I'd like to call our first witness.
Raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, and help you God?
I do.
Please state your name for the record.
Christopher Richter, R-I-C-H-T-E-R, professional address is 1120 Headquarters Plaza, 8th floor, North Tower, Morristown, New Jersey.
Chris, can you please just state your affiliation with the applicant for the record, please?
Certainly, we're the development manager. Our responsibilities are to manage the consulting through entitlements, deal with the pre-construction activities, and ultimately build out the project.
And if you would, can you just please state for the board the overall vision for development of this site and some of the history related to the environmental remediation that has occurred or will occur?
Certainly. To begin with, as previously stated, this is a first application of what we envision to be several applications before this board as we generate the tenant interest and establish the ultimate build-out of the project. So we're going to call this the initial phase 1, which gives us the ability to build out the infrastructure. You'll hear from our engineer, there's a substantial site work package to build out the infrastructure, the roads, the traffic signals, the utilities, not only servicing the 2 paths in question, the self-storage and the drugstore, but also put the infrastructure in place for the full build-out of the project. The 4-lot subdivision is intended to parcelize the project into fee simple ownership, which facilitates financing and establishing the common area charges and taxes for each of the users. And finally, the final site plan approval for the self-storage, which is essentially anxious to start construction. And the drugstore is, we do not have a user for the drugstore yet, but we have substantial interest, so we'd like to get those approvals in place. We hope the plan itself does not change, but certainly there may be a user that comes in. We may have to come back before the board for amendments on it when we get the ultimate detail on the drugstore.
Point of order. I think I misunderstood. You told me, you just said you're gonna sell these parcels off?
No,
No? All right.
no, they're there. By subdividing the parcels, you can then finance them on a site-specific basis
But who are you financing it? Do you finance it to
for the
you?
construction.
Oh, all right. But the ones that are gonna take over the storage building, take over the gas station, and take over the pharmacy, they're not gonna own the property?
No, right now,
Tulsa's still gonna own everything?
that's correct.
All right.
The self-storage is a ground lease.
That's all right, I just misunderstood. I thought you were going to build it and then sell it. My mistake.
With respect to the site history, and this is basically to address some of the comments in your staff letters. The site itself does have a long history. As early as 1814, there was a copper mill on the site, essentially at the intersection of Mill and Franklin. There are still remnants of that operation there. That operated until roughly 1939, at which point in time Jergens bought the site and built the facility out to manufacturing soaps and other products that Jergens manufactured. In 1975, the project was, the site was purchased by Roche, and they continue to operate the facility as the Roche Molecular Systems Inc. manufacturing facility until roughly 2010, at which point in time Roche demolished the structures, and essentially it's been vacant since 2010. There are remnants of that prior operation
consisting of the old driveways and parking areas, as well as the perimeter fencing that exists on the property. The property is, or does have environmental issues. Langen Engineering is our licensed site remediation professional. They just issued a remedial action work plan, and that's out to bid. Basically, we have to remove about 6,000 cubic yards of dirt from the upper tier area, and then about 2,000 yards from the lower tier area. You'll hear that discussion with the civil engineer, but if you're familiar with the site, when you're at the intersection of Mill and Franklin, there's substantial retaining walls that exist at the intersection. The highest one is roughly 25 feet. That actually served as the railroad abutment. There's coal bunkers in that from the prior operations. The railroad trestle was removed approximately 2 years ago, I think as a condition of the senior housing across the street. So you will see activity hopefully as early as early November on that remediation activity. That's going to happen with or without approvals from the board and the regulatory agencies such as DEP and SCB, the other permits that we need to construct the facility. So just moving on to addressing some of the other staff comments on the operations, specifically addressing the self-storage operations. Their hours of operation will be, for the office hours, will be from Monday to Friday from 9:30 a.m. to 6 p.m., Saturday 9 a.m. to 5:30 p.m., and Sunday the office hours are closed. That office will be staffed with a maximum of 2 employees during the peak time. As far as customer access, that's going to be from 7 days a week from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. You have testimony from the civil engineer about the location of the gates and the secure access into the self-storage facility. So you have 2 sets of hours of operation, one for the customer and one for the employees. The self-storage facility itself will contain approximately 1,000 rental units. It's a 4-story, 100,000 square foot. It's a very typical, almost a prototype facility. The ultimate operator will be Extra Space Storage. They're the second largest self-storage REIT in the United States. They presently own and operate over 1,400 units throughout all 50 states. So it's a very seasoned operator. Moving on to the drugstore. As I mentioned, we do not have a specific operator, but the operations for the top 2 are relatively consistent. So starting with the hours of operation, both the store and drive-thru are proposed at 24 hours. That is permitted by ordinance and it's certainly open for discussion. Number of employees will be 25 to 30 full and part-time, with approximately 6 to 8 in the store at any time, which would typically consist of 1 pharmacist, 2 pharmacy assistants, 1 store manager, and 3 clerks. As far as deliveries, it's essentially 1 WB-50 or large tractor trailer per week, and approximately 6 to 8 small deliveries from local vendors for soda and candy, etc. Trash is picked up once a week, and approximately 70-80% of the waste is cardboard, which gets picked up on an as-needed basis approximately once a month.
And that would be by a private wallet?
That's correct. And I think that covers my direct.
It does.
Do you have any question?
Yeah, you said 24-hour pharmacy drive-through, right? What are they going to be store hours of the pharmacy?
Well, a typical store will cater to the market demand. So we would like the opportunity to have the store 24 hours. We don't know if the market exists. We are essentially right next to the hospital. So as patients leave the hospital and need to fill prescriptions, there is an opportunity to drive next door and get those done. So our hope is that, given this particular location, that 24 hours for both the store and the drive-thru is acceptable.
The storage unit, let's go over to that. It's going to be open from what, 9 to 6:30 during the week, 9 to 5:30 on Saturday, you said? Now, after it closes at 6:30, the office closes at 6:30 and 5:30. Do those, who's ever taking care of the storage unit, do they live on the premise or no?
No.
No. So then you're gonna keep the storage unit open from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. at night, right?
Correct.
All right. What happens after 5:30 and 6:30? Who's there to watch the place?
There's 24-hour video surveillance of the facility, but there's no employee specifically on site during that 4-hour period. And that's, we've had this discussion with many municipalities over the concern of security. It just hasn't been a problem, so.
Yeah, but I know it might be not a problem in another town, but, I mean, if you take a walk 500 feet up on your right, you got Stephen Crane Village. So, you know, I wouldn't want to be in your storage facility after 5:30 if there's nobody else in there.
And that's a valid point, and in certain municipalities and locations, they will have that added personnel there during full operation, so at 10 p.m. there'll be someone there. It is handled on a site-by-site basis, and certainly if security becomes an issue, operations will adjust to meet the security needs of the site.
My personal opinion is after 6:30, after 5:30, if nobody's there, and people are going to have access to that till 10 p.m. at night, I can guarantee you're going to have a security problem. Just for me knowing the neighborhood.
And I appreciate that.
All right.
And I can certainly, while the other witnesses are discussing the application tonight, I can make some inquiries and see if that's something that's reasonable.
I'm just telling you, I know the neighborhood.
Thank
So,
you.
that's all I have.
And I tend to go with the same line of thinking, because it would be a very much concern for me as also about anybody else. But are there any other questions?
How about if they approve the application, make it a condition they have a police officer there for a certain amount of hours?
Yeah, absolutely.
I think the comments that were being addressed, could we have, if you're going to make it a condition of approval, and not be a police officer, but have it be somebody on site as far as operations and management?
That's fine if they can handle what the problems may arise.
I think that would be our initial reaction, is that if the customers have access, that there'd be at least one full-time employee within the facility during those operations. If it gets problematic, the operations is going to reach out to.
How do you get into this place? Okay, you built a storage building, right? And I rented a storage unit from you. I go up there now to put my stuff in. How do I get in after 6:30?
You have a key card access to the gate system.
So, when I get out of my car to get open the gate, that's when I can get hit. And once whoever hits me now has the key, and they have full access to the building.
That's correct. We also
All
have
right.
lights and video cameras.
That don't stop nobody. Lights and videos, I mean, videos don't mean nothing. They're not afraid of videos. All right.
Well, let me discuss it with my associates, and we'll certainly, before the night's over, we'll come up with a proposal to address your concern.
All right.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Questions of each witness from the audience? Questions of each witness?
You got what the audience asked. You gonna do it now or next?
Next.
Our next witness is our civil engineer.
Point of order.
The whole truth and nothing but
Don't
the
you
truth,
think you
so help
should
you God.
ask, if anybody wants, and then anybody in the audience wants to ask them a question, are we gonna go through all 4 witnesses, and then at the end you're gonna say, does anybody in the audience have any questions? And you're gonna have people coming up, and you're gonna have to call this guy back up, or this guy back up, or the other guy back up?
Well, I thought I was going to do that,
All right, you're the chairman, you do what you want.
but, whatever you
Do what
wish.
you want. I'm not the
Board
chairman.
wish.
I'm not the chairman.
I'll change. All right, proceed.
Okay.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Please state your name and address for the record.
Sure. First name is Brett, B-R-E-T-T. Last name is Skafanetz, S-K-A-I-N-E-T-Z. Business address is 245 Main Street, Chester, New Jersey.
Brett, have you previously testified before this board in the past?
I have not, it's my first time here.
So, could you
Thanks for having me.
please briefly state your educational and professional background for the board?
Sure, I have a Bachelor of Science degree from civil engineering from Rutgers University. I'm currently the Director of Dynamic Engineering Consultants. Been a licensed professional engineer for approximately 20 years and been qualified in over about 120 boards throughout the area, including towns surrounding the area.
I make a motion, we approve.
Great, thank you very much.
And Brett, were you the preparer of the site plans that were submitted in connection with this application?
Yes, that's correct.
Once you're set up, if you could just orient the board to the location of the proposed site, and if we could start with the subdivision proposal first?
Sure. Just to orient the board, I brought with me a colorized version of the aerial photo that's in the site plan package that was delivered to the board.
Yes.
Yeah. Here you go. So A1 is entitled Aerial Map Exhibit and simply gives you an orientation of the site. So we're looking at the property, which is Block 2301, Lot 1. It's just under 18.8 acres, oriented at the corner of South Franklin Avenue, which I will note for the purposes of discussion runs north-south, and Mill Street running east-west. Sits on
Can
the
you try to
southwest.
move that back so the audience can see it too?
Sure,
And
absolutely.
move it back to the opening there so where the board and the audience can see it.
No problem. I'm talking loud enough
Yeah,
as well?
talking fine for now.
Okay, I usually do talk loud. So, again, orienting the property, we're on the southwest corner of the intersection of Mill Street and South Franklin Avenue. We're surrounded by a multitude of uses. To the west, we're looking at residential homes. To the north, mixed uses, the American Vets, you have multifamily, the daycare. To the east, we have Branch Brook Park. To the south, the hospital and facilities associated with it. So, mixed use. Uses at South Franklin Avenue, currently there's one main driveway at South Franklin which fed the site, which again, as noted earlier, was the former location of the Roche facility, which in the last few years has been demolished. The next exhibit I would put up, this is a rendering of our site plan, which actually has been modified, as you'll see, to take out the Wawa use. So everything on the plan is the same within the site plan set, with the exception of Aldo Pad B that is shown in green.
Counsel, would you mark that now, please?
Sure.
I don't want to interrupt the testimony.
Mark is A2.
I did A2. And A2 is entitled Amended Overall Site Plan Rendering with a preparation date of August 10th, 2017. So again, oriented the same way as the aerial, with Franklin Avenue along the bottom of the page and Mill Street on the right-hand side. This illustrates the proposal to subdivide the property into 4 different lots. We're calling them, for the purposes of testimony, and it's denoted on the plan, A, which has the pharmacy on it. That's about a 2.2 acre parcel. Then you have parcel B, which is about 1.95 acres. Parcel C for the self-storage, that's about 3.6 acres, and the remainder, which is just under 11 acres, is parcel D. So those are the 4 lots that are being proposed. As I noted before, a moment ago, the access that existed, we're getting into the proposed improvements now.
Brett, while you're on the site plan, you did review the code regulations related to the redevelopment plan as far as requirements for lot area, and the proposed lots do comply with those requirements?
We did. Each individual lot conforms with those requirements, yes. And so moving into the improvements, that existing driveway, we're proposing a new driveway in that same location, illustrating a proposed signal at that location as well, and the construction of an interior roadway that will proceed as I'm moving along with my pen to the west, shifts then to the north, which is going to run along the back of the pharmacy, and then just to the south side of the proposed self-storage, run then to the west, and then kick out to a new proposed driveway at Mill Street. So that roadway varies between 25 feet and 30 feet in width, so plenty of width for vehicles to maneuver, and also has different access points off that interior roadway to get to both the pharmacy and the self-storage under proposed condition. We also have a new separate right-in, right-out driveway to the pharmacy proposed along Franklin Avenue, closer to the Mill Street intersection. And then, like I noted before, you have the access to Mill Street, and that's the closest access point for the self-storage facility. The pharmacy, moving into specifics for each building, that's about over 13,000 square feet, 13,224 square foot building, which is pretty standard for pharmacies these days. They range between the 12 and 15,000 square foot range. We propose, as I mentioned, the access, 60 parking spaces, which is also consistent with the major pharmacies. Any one of the major pharmacies, which we have worked on individually in the past, dictate the amount of parking they're looking for based on peak hours, traffic, history, and 60 tends to be the number. We're proposing that number, which is above the number that's required per the ordinance. The circulation around that building is pretty standard. If you were to enter off of Franklin Avenue, you have two-way circulation on the eastern and northern sides of the building, which leads to one-way counterclockwise circulation around the west side, which is pretty typical for that side of the building, which has a drive-through. Any facility you typically drive around will have that counterclockwise flow. That then leads at the southwest corner where that connection point is to the interior roadway, and then you have one-way circulation to the east back towards Franklin Avenue. On that south side of the building, that's where the loading takes place, that's where the trash collection takes place. So off to that side of the building, the main entrance to the building will be facing towards the corner. That's pretty typical in these arrangements. When you're up on a corner lot, they'll have the entrance on that side to be able to have view from either one of the roadways. Moving on to the self-storage. The self-storage is a 25,000 square foot footprint, 4 stories, so 100,000 square foot in total. It contains about 1,000 units, storage units within it. Based on the parking requirements, it's the greater of those number of units times 0.75 or square footage of the building. In this case, the square footage rules, we require 19 parking spaces, and we propose 19 parking spaces. And those are shown on the eastern side of the building. Very similar to the pharmacy. Well, similar to the pharmacy, we have access surrounding the entire building, although in this case, it's two-way circulation all the way around. Okay? As mentioned by Mr. Richter earlier, there is fencing that surrounds the building. There are 2 gates on the easterly side of the building, and those are the gates that would be actuated by the car, okay, for access. Then the eastern side can be accessed by driving in, don't have the drive-through gates, and that's where the main doorway would be for the office during operating hours. Okay. With respect to each one of these, we'll go now into grading and stormwater.
Can we just go through a few items before you move on? The parking spaces, the stall size, are they in compliance with the zone requirements?
They are, yes.
9 by 18, I believe it is?
That's correct.
And you discussed the internal road circulation. Is it your understanding that the applicant, since these are going to be separate lots, they're going to have cross-access easements over each of the lots for access to them?
Yes, they would need to, so they will have that ability, yes.
And as far as the bulk standards, front yard, rear yard, side yard, lot coverage, are the proposed improvements in compliance with those standards?
They're fully compliant, yes.
Thank you.
Grading and drainage, Mr. Richter was noting as well about the movement of soil. You've obviously driven by this site, familiar with it, up on a hill. You know, obviously at the very center of the property is the peak, and it drops off essentially in 3 directions. It drops off towards Franklin Avenue, a portion of it drops off towards Mill Street, a portion of it drops off towards the southwest corner of the site. We're mainly focused right now on the front, obviously the uses, and towards the northeast corner, that direction towards Mill and Franklin. We're sort of maintaining that same drainage pattern, those same grading patterns with the way that the site drops off. We do, with respect to the wall that was mentioned in the front at Mill Street, that's coming down and a new wall is going up. That as per the plan, it'll be a tiered wall that runs in essentially the same area where the existing wall is today. That's important because that corner is going to be regulated by the DEP. We have an application into the DEP because a portion of the floodplain for the stream across the way is impacted, or the storage of that stream is in that corner. So we need to maintain that. But it also serves as a part of the drainage function on the site. So with respect to stormwater, we're proposing a basin that will be underground underneath the parking lot for the pharmacy, which will discharge out towards Franklin Avenue. But with respect to that area at the corner, there is stormwater is going to be discharged to an above-ground basin, which will then, once it has been detained, it will drain at a controlled rate out towards that area, which is where it flows today to a connection point in Mill Street that exists out there today. We're simply making a new connection to it as part of the proposed plan. From a stormwater management standpoint, that is clearly handled. All utilities do exist to the site. We are running new utilities into the project. One of the key things is a new water main loop that will be running along the proposed roadway. Speaking with your engineer, we've agreed to upsize that line from an 8-inch to a 12-inch line on the plan, so that will be noted. All other utilities, gas, electric, sewer exist, and we're making the individual connections to the buildings to those different services. Landscaping lighting, we do have a lighting plan within the set. There will be a mixture of building mounted fixtures and area light fixtures surrounding each one of the proposed uses, as well as area light fixtures that will run along the roadway. So each one of the new features proposed will have adequate lighting per the ordinances of the town, as well, and they're actually enhanced a bit too for the needs of the client. And so we have those proposed building mounted fixtures around each one of the buildings as well, that primarily will stay on at night, all hours of the evening for security purposes. All the building mounted lights, as far as area lights are concerned, some of the lights will be shut off as part of the security plan, not all of them will be on. Want to make note that the lights that are closest to the residents are shielded, even though they're over 140 feet or so away, about 100 or so feet away from those residences. So there's significant distance from them, but yet we're still shielding them as well along that side. So we do no impact in that direction. With respect to landscaping, you'll see in this plan there are trees proposed along the roadway, trees around each one of the uses, as well as shrubs within the planting islands that surround each one of the buildings. We have several hundred plantings that are being proposed as part of this plan to enhance the landscape around each one of those uses and that proposed new roadway. Outside agency approvals, I mentioned DEP. We also have filed to the Soil Conservation District, and we're working with the county right now because of South Franklin Avenue being under their jurisdiction with respect to the proposed driveway and the signal that's being proposed at that location.
And based on your review of the redevelopment plan, the lighting and landscaping plans are in conformance with that
They are,
plan?
yes.
And prior to tonight's meeting, did you have an opportunity to review the engineer review letter dated August 4th?
I did.
And can the applicant comply with all the comments made by the township's engineer?
Yes, we can.
Thank you.
Anyone have any questions?
Yeah, I have a question. So I'm coming down Franklin Avenue now, headed towards the north.
Yes.
So I gotta stop at the traffic light on Mill and Franklin.
Yes.
Once I get through that, I gotta stop at a traffic light that's in front of your place. And then after I get through that, I gotta stop at a traffic light that's at Claremont Drive in Franklin.
Going in the southerly direction, yes.
That's insane.
Mr. Kennedy, our traffic expert can address the traffic light.
Okay, now what other exits do you have there? You said something on Mill Street, I wasn't following you.
Yes, we have an exit drive on Mill Street.
And they can only make a right-hand turn out of there?
That's a proposed full movement driveway.
Did you ever go up there when there's traffic there in the afternoon and in the morning? It's bumper to bumper up that road and up towards Harrison Street. So somebody trying to get out of that to make a right or a left, good luck there. You know, now when you come out of the front where the traffic light is, I only can make a right?
No, the traffic signal is allowing full movements. That's why with the traffic signal there, that will help facilitate those movements.
Yeah.
Will you have a traffic light on Mill Street?
No.
Of course there'll be a traffic light on Mill Street. They don't take that traffic light down.
When they come out? Well, I'm talking
No, at our-
about the upper portion.
What does it matter if they have a traffic light there? Can you imagine putting a traffic light there?
Well, what I'm going into that angle is, it looks as if you're coming out from that facility, you will be needing the senior driveway across.
No, we're further up from that driveway, yes. That driveway is located probably at around the Wirt Street for the seniors. Yeah, we're closer to the daycare facility, further up the hill.
Because that turn is a bad turn.
The turn on Mill Street? No, I'll bring this up, one of the comments I failed to mention, engineer asked us as part of the plan that the trees, because of the visibility coming around that corner, we will be in our plan modifying our plan to show the removal of trees right at that corner. So we had a meeting prior to,
And that train trestle, will that be,
yes, it'll come down,
so you'll be after that train trestle,
yes.
which isn't much more.
I don't understand how 3 traffic lights are gonna work up there.
Or even the access coming out onto Mill.
Our traffic engineer's here, good.
Yeah,
testimony
well-
regarding that.
It's good to be having here, but it ain't gonna fix the situation that's gonna come up. So it's unlikely, I know how that traffic up there works too. I sat in it many. To get from out of the park and across Mill Street, it takes you like 20 minutes. Just to get out onto Franklin Avenue. Because you have people making left-hand turns, you have people coming this way making left-hand turns. So that'll bottle up that corner. Your traffic light there will bottle up the area between the two of them. And then you got another traffic light 10 feet away there. Yeah.
Well, Claremont closed down that street temporarily. You couldn't get out. You couldn't get out, and now you're adding lights, and you're adding more onto Mill Street. But we'll hear.
Yes, we're hearing the board's comments, and our traffic expert is the most appropriate to answer those comments.
All right.
Anybody else? Question? No? Okay.
Right now.
Thank you.
Our next witness is our architect, Charles Keith.
Do you swear that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Please state your name and address for the record.
Charles P. Dietz, registered architect, state of New Jersey, 90 East Halsey Road, Suite 201, Parsippany, New Jersey.
Just spell your last name, please.
D-I-E-T-Z.
Thank you.
Mr. Keith, have you previously testified before this board?
As Mr. Skapanis says, this is one of the boards I have not previously testified before.
If you could you please state your educational and professional background for the board?
Sure, I have a Bachelor of Architecture degree from the New Jersey Institute of Technology, New Jersey School of Architecture, class of 1983. I'm a licensed architect for the last 30 years. Besides New Jersey, I hold 14 other licenses around the country.
I make most you take him as a professional.
Thank you.
Thank you. And your license is current?
Yes, it is.
Were you the preparer of the architectural plans that were submitted in connection with this application?
I supervise the preparers of these plans.
Great. If you could walk through the plans for each of the proposed buildings?
I'm only going to mark one exhibit. Basically, I've mounted the black and white sheets that were in your package. The only new exhibit I have is a colorized version of the self-storage building.
A3?
I believe the plans are pretty self-explanatory based on what Mr. Skapanis has previously testified to, the layout of the actual footprints of the buildings on the site. Again, we're only talking about 2 buildings at this time. A pharmacy at the corner intersection of Mill and Franklin that will propose a drive-through, and the self-storage building. If I can start with the drive-through pharmacy. I am an architect that does specialize in designing pharmacies in the state of New Jersey. We work for all the major pharmacy companies, CVS's, the Walgreens, the Rite Aids. So we're very familiar with what their needs are and their uses are. So they asked us to design this building for them. Basically, the building is a 4-sided building, but 3 sides are very visible to the public, either on the street or in the parking lot areas, which would be your south elevation, your east elevation, and your north elevation. As Mr. Scapin has stated, most major pharmacies today like in an intersection like this where they're on a corner property, they like their entrance to be right at the corner. And as you saw on Mr. Scapin's plan, basically the elevation to the left of that and the elevation to the right of that, where they like their parking field, they clearly identify their entrance, but they actually put their signs not over the entrance, but on the flanking walls on either side of it. This building, because it fronts on 2 streets, we are allowed to have both facade signs. So this would be the corner tower element that has glass on both sides, on the east and the south. And then we'll have a flanking brick area that has high windows because they put their displays below that, but they do like to still get some natural light into the store. So they do have some higher windows that are about 5 feet off the finished floor level. Then we have some shading devices, some metal canopies that will provide some shade, even though the light will still come through. The shade will provide some of that direct solar gain against that. And again, they will accent with these accentuated pilot or piers the name of the pharmacy, whatever it ends up being. Then what we also tried to do to unify the building, you'll see on the self-storage, is we're running a natural stone base. I think you're familiar with it, everybody sees it today on a lot of the shopping centers, residential. It's called like a cultured stone. It's a simulated manufactured stone product. That's approximately 2.5 feet high that would run continuously around the 3 facades I talked about, the south, the east, and the north. And a couple areas where the windows are up higher, we're proposing to elevate the stone, bring it a little higher up over the ground. Again, just to create a little difference in material and style. What we've also had on these walls, so that they're not blank, we'll have 2 colors or 2 tones of brick. This would probably be either a lighter or a darker brick, and whichever way we go, we do an opposite brick color on the main building, on the balance of the shopping center. So depending on if this is dark, these would be light, or this could be dark, and those would be light. That's something we have to determine. We've also introduced some horizontal banding of brick soldier course around the building in those 3 facades, again, to break up the massiveness of the wall. And as you can see, I have a dotted line here, which represents where the actual roof height would be, which will be 3 to 4 feet below the actual parapet. So that acts as a screening device for the rooftop units that will be on there. Most pharmacies of this size will probably have between 4 and 5 rooftop mechanicals. A couple of them will be at the front parapet area, which is even taller yet, approximately 25 feet 8 inches tall. So those will be visibly screened. And then as you go to the back of the roof slopes for the drainage, as you can see here. The rest of the units are usually placed towards the back of the building. And we even have a taller parapet over 5.5 feet tall that will help screen. Obviously, if there was any initiative that these units could be seen, we would provide additional screening devices that we use in other properties that would naturally screen these rooftops. So our presentation is any rooftop equipment will not be visible to the public on the roadway system or in the parking lot that's installed on this building. The rear side of the building, or the west elevation, they have a single overhead door. The way pharmacies are loaded, they control their tractor trailers that come. Most of the time you'll see a CVS or a Walgreens truck. They control the times and deliveries. They come in little storage bins that they unload. They bring them into the store, into the warehouse area, and they get unloaded and brought out into the store. The bins are stacked, and then when the truck comes the next time, it takes the empty bins back with them and brings new filled bins. So that actually all happens. There's no recessed dock. There's no need to have a truck up against the building. It's all little plastic bins, they call them, that just get stacked. They take it out, unload the merchandise, restack the bins, and the next time the truck comes, they put them back on there. Most of their waste is going to be of cardboard nature, so they do have a dumpster enclosure that's fully screened. This shows you that, and then they also have a compactor area for that as well, so that will all be visually screened. We do have a drive-up window, as I explained, and we will have a flat metal canopy that will protect any patrons that are parked, trying to pick up their prescriptions when they're ready, so that when they reach out and open the window, the heavy rain coming down will not get you wet or get the person inside the store wet when they open their drive-through window. So we made it a decorative feature. It'll stick out at least 3 feet. The car will sit underneath that so they can make all the transactions and not get wet.
And the height that you referenced of the pharmacy, that's in compliance with the redevelopment plan,
Yes, it
as
is.
well as all the signage that was referenced?
Yes, it is.
With respect to the freestanding monument signs, are you able to speak to that, or?
Yes, that'll be my third drawing.
Great.
That's in the package. So if we move to the self-storage building, which I've marked as Exhibit A3, as Mr. Richter mentioned, we are talking to an end user, extra space storage, four-story building, approximately 1,000 units. Mr. Skappens described how you enter and exit, what the security is with the fencing. These are their corporate colors, so they basically have a light warm gray, a dark warm gray, and then the feature between the doors and the panels around the glass are their green, so that would be identifying them. It allows people to identify, besides their signage, that, each self-storage, you've seen orange ones, there's green ones. Every manufacturer, every basically end user has their own color scheme. So we're mimicking that. What that's made of is that we have a metal panel system. That'll be prefab, that'll come in with these lines in them. They'll be easily installed. And then what we've done is we've actually accentuated, which is above and beyond, as Mr. Richter said, what the prototype is, to tie it to the rest of the development. We brought that simulated manufactured stone to identify and accentuate the entrance area, so you can see on the east elevation in the corner, we have a canopy to demarc the entrance, and then all along that south elevation that doesn't have the glass entrance, that's visible to the roadway system, that will all be the stone system up to 10 foot in height. Everything else after that would be the metal panel and the insulated glass. And again, the units will sit up on the roof, they will be taller than the roof, so we will provide a screening system to make sure that those will be protected and not visible, the extra units will not be visible to the general population and general public. And we are proposing 2 signs, and they are conforming with the ordinance as well. Lastly, we've designed, again, you have this prepared before we withdrew the Wawa, so you can kind of take that monument sign out for the moment. But we're proposing, and I think they're shown on Mr. Skappenitz's plan, several monument signs that will be in and around the site at each of the driveway entrances. They're only 6 feet tall, 12 feet wide. We've decorated them 2 feet high with, again, the cultured type stone with a ledge sill at that point. We've mimicked the coping that's on the buildings at the top, and then you'd have an internally illuminated sign cabinet, 2-sided, that would be subdivided into multiple panels for the full build-out. As Mr. Richter said, this site is only being developed right now in the first phase. We know there'll be other phases, so we've designed the monuments to be able to accommodate any future tenants and further development on the property. So basically, you're approving, hopefully, a monument sign of this size that meets the ordinance in the locations we're requesting. Whoever comes in, they would, have to fit within the size panel that we've provided for them within that sign, and, they would get their name on there accordingly. Otherwise, it will just be a blank, probably plexiglass face until such tenant comes along. So at the moment, we would just be asking for a monument sign that has the pharmacy, which is at the driveway off of Franklin Avenue. Then there's a driveway, like we said, at Mill Road. They would have the extra storage space and anything that might be developed behind that. And then another monument for extra storage, a single one for pharmacy, and then again, whatever the future development, when that was the Wawa application. So these are all the signage, both facade and freestanding, are in conformance with the ordinance and the redevelopment agreement.
Great, thank you.
Anybody have anything?
On the self-storage building, at the meeting where we discussed the amendment to include this, we had a discussion because of its proximity to the residents, that maybe 3 floors would be the maximum. Now you're coming back with 4. And also we were told that the buildings, are now meant to look like office buildings. We would be happy with it. This does not look like an office building. Can you comment?
I would let Mr. Richter answer the question about the 3-story versus 4-story. But again, a lot of modern, current office buildings do have a metal panel. Obviously, we can't have too much glass, like an office building would have with a continuous river window or a punch window in every area, because that's how they put the storage units up against the outside walls. But again, I think with the extra scoring and the extra lines, it's not just going to be a blank wall. These will read the variations between the 3 colors, between the green, the dark gray, and the light gray. I think these are actually very cool elements you see when they have this glass. They keep those lights on, so you actually see that glow behind it, which gives it a nice effect like an office building would have. At night, you can't see, or during the day, you usually can't see it through a window in an office building, and at night, when darkness comes in, then you can see through it and the light shine through from inside. I think that's the intent here, to accentuate each of the corners of the building, and then one central piece on the east facade, so that you can get that glow at night. The canopies will have lights and the downlights there, but again, you can only do so much with self-storage. I think to have continuous windows like you would in an office building, just because it would not give them the functionality of being the units that they need for that. Again, I think the extra step with the colors, the stone, and the additional scoring in the panels to give you that little more architectural theme going along instead of just a big blank wall. And if I leave Mr. Richter to your other question.
And Ms. Rector might be able to address this, but I was here at that meeting when the amendment was adopted. I don't specifically recall that comment, but I do have a copy of the resolution of the board's recommendation to the council. And I also do not see that comment incorporated in there for consideration by the council. It was adopted for a 4-story building, and there was no reference with respect to the architectural features of it. So, we are in conformance with what was adopted.
If I could just follow up, it's Chris Richter again. I think what we haven't talked about is what a low-intensity use self-storage is. You're going to hear testimony from the traffic consultant on how virtually this is the lowest traffic generating use there is. I think when we looked about placing the self-storage at this location, it was because this is where there is potential impact to the residences. So this is, if this was an office building, you'd have, and I'll defer to the traffic consultant, 30 times more traffic.
No, I understand.
So this is a nice low-intensity use adjacent to the residential. We think it's, of any place in the site, this makes the most sense, because you would get another use there that's much more intensive if it wasn't self-storage.
Anyone else? We're ready.
Thank you. Our last witness is our traffic consultant.
Do you swear the testimony about to give the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Please state your name and address.
Justin Taylor, Taylor, and the business address is 1904 Main Street, Lake Como, New Jersey.
Thank you. Justin, have you previously testified before the board?
I also have not testified for this board.
Okay. Educational and professional background, please.
Absolutely. I hold a bachelor's in engineering from the University of Delaware. I'm a professional engineer in the state of New Jersey, as well as Texas and Pennsylvania. I'm also a certified professional traffic operations engineer through the Institute of Transportation Engineers. We're practicing traffic planning for approximately the last 17 years. And I've testified at dozens of boards.
Make a motion, we take him as a professional.
Thank you.
If you could for the board, I know you looked at this site as far as traffic impact. Can you please just state for the board what you did in your analysis and what the conclusions are?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I've heard some concerns of the board. I won't belabor the layout. Three professionals before me have done a great job kind of orienting you to what we're proposing. What my task really was to take a look and address the traffic issues, whether or not there's capacity on these roadways to handle the additional traffic from the site, as well as to ensure that there's safe and efficient access for the project. In order to do that, we initially met with the county. The traffic signal along Franklin Avenue, that being in their jurisdiction, was of concern to them. And we wanted to make sure that they would be okay with us installing a traffic signal in close proximity to the other signals that have been brought up. When we sat with them, that was also one of their concerns. And we went over it for a fair amount of time and came up with the fact that we really think we can coordinate those 3 signals with the signal timings that we have in order to actually process the traffic along Franklin Avenue in one, what we would call a platoon. So we'll allow, as that will go green, it's timed so that when you get the green light at Mill, you'll then get the green light at our signal, and then you'll get the green light at the hospital. And so we feel that we can accomplish, we're not going to increase any of the delays along that roadway with the new signal. And so based on that, what we find is with the installation of signal, that it's going to operate at good levels of service. We're talking about levels of service C at that driveway. The other concern I've heard from the board is the driveway along Mill. And so the location of that has been chosen, one, to provide the sufficient sight distances, to give you enough room to be able to see the traffic traveling along Mill Street in both directions to exit safely. We also wanted to provide as much room as we possibly could from that intersection, because we do understand that there is queuing, there are vehicles traveling along Mill Street, and it does back up from the traffic signal. But by locating it at the northwest corner of the property, it minimizes any impact between those two. So based on that, when we ran our levels of service for that, we're looking at a level of service B at that driveway as well, because we don't anticipate the majority of our traffic coming out of that driveway. The site is more oriented toward Franklin Avenue, which is the major thoroughfare and the major collective roadway through this area. So based on the analysis that we did, what we found is both the proposed driveways for the site are going to operate safely and efficiently. There's capacity in those roadways to handle traffic that we propose. The other thing we did look at was the parking, but Mr. Stafford has done a great job explaining the parking as proposed. We do exceed the ordinance requirement, but we do, in the design of the pharmacy, we're really kind of meeting what those national retailers require for their sites for ease of their customers. So as designed, I think the site's really, from a traffic standpoint, going to operate safely and efficiently.
And as far as, can you just touch on the trip generation that Mr. Richter testified to with respect to self-storage facilities and the frequency of trips that might be generated through those types of uses?
Absolutely. He really hit the nail on the head. We're talking about, even with 100,000 square feet of self-storage, we're talking about 20 cars in an hour. That's the busiest on a Saturday. Actually, it's about 12 in and 12 out. So you're talking about 24 cars. Whereas if you had a 100,000 square foot office, you're going to generate 3, 4, 5 times that, and maybe even more. So the traffic impact of that type of use is one of the lowest that you actually find.
Thank you.
I have the question of, would you consider making that one-way in instead of going out on that street, on Mill Street?
I would hesitate to do
You make the
that.
right to go in and beat the traffic light on Mill Street.
Right.
So you make it a one-way going in, you pull in, you go down to the bottom where that traffic light is. Even if you put a no turn on red, nobody pays attention to that, and you make a right, so you're beating the light on Mill and Franklin.
Yeah, I'm thinking of if they come in, going out is more dangerous. I just think that's a dangerous street and with the traffic that's there,
I would hesitate to do that.
especially on high peak hours.
Only because what that does is force anybody that wants to return, all the residential that's up this, that will be coming to possibly the other uses on here, but definitely the uses that are proposed right now. You're then forcing them back out on Franklin Avenue and through 2 traffic signals. And I really don't think, from a circulation standpoint, that's the best solution to this. Again, what we're looking at from this development, coming out this driveway, we're talking about 20 cars, right? Or a car every 3 minutes, possibly. You're really not even going to notice the difference. They're not going to, they're going to be able to come out of that driveway without any issue. Now, are they going to wait when the traffic comes along? They're going to, they may, depending on when they show up to the driveway. But they'll be able to exit safely, and there's the capacity. What we find with our analysis, like I said, is level service B. So on average, the car coming out of there, they're going to wait 15, 20 seconds, and then they're going to pull out. Right? One person may wait a minute, and the other guy may wait a second, but on average, what we're finding is about that 15 seconds. So there's really not going to be an impact to Mill Avenue, and the cars will be able to exit safely.
I'm only speaking from experience of the senior building that is now there, and we are experiencing people just pulling out. You can't see when you make that turn.
Well, I mean, that's...
That specific driveway has caused a lot of problems on Mill Street. And there's not many residences there.
It's correct, understandably. That's one of the reasons, that I said why we located where we did. To be able to give us clear sight lines up and down Mill for people to make that decision. One of those things that creates a little bit of other issues is there may not be the full clear sight lines that are necessary at that driveway. So you do have people pulling out in front of other cars. But the location that we have here meets what the ESHA, or the American Association of State and Highway Transportation Officials, would say is necessary for the intersection to operate safely. And what it does is it gives you the ability to look in either direction along Mill Street and make that decision. Are there cars coming up from the signal? Or again, is it clear because the signal's red and there's nobody coming down there, and then be able to turn out? And in the other direction, we actually have even greater sight visibilities.
I ask a question about the maintenance of, I don't know if anyone that would help that, on that road. Who will remove the snow? Who is going to be responsible in the future to pave it?
It's a private roadway, so it would be under our, my client's responsibility to pave, to upkeep, to plow, and that sort of thing. So it's a private roadway.
Any other questions?
Is he done? Are you done with explaining your stuff? Okay, here we go back. I'm back on Franklin and Mill. All right, and I'm headed to north. So Franklin and Mill, there's a left-hand turn lane to let the traffic move left because there's so much congestion there, and there's the green to go straight. So now I'm going straight. Do I run into a red light or a green light?
When you come live, as you come...
I'm coming down Franklin to Mill Street.
Yep.
The traffic light is red.
Oh, traffic light is red, correct.
Now it turns green, so there's a left-hand turn signal there.
Yep.
And a green light, but it holds the traffic on the other side.
Correct.
From turning. So now I go straight. Am I running into a red light, or am I going to run into a green light in front of this building?
You should run into a green light in front of our site.
Now the cars coming north, are they running into a green light there too?
They should, that's correct. And what we'll have to do is, because there's that offset, that delay for the left turn, it's something that we take into account in the analysis as we set the timings and the offsets from the hospital to our signal to Mill.
All right, now what do we do? The people are headed north on Franklin Avenue. Now, I don't know if you've been up there and looked, you must because you're the traffic expert, but when they're sitting at the red light on Mill and Franklin, sometimes the cars go all the way back almost to the hospital. So now they're going to get stuck. The ones that are sitting in the traffic light are going to get stuck in a red light, and people coming out of your place that want to make a left-hand turn, they're not going to be able to make a left-hand turn because both lanes are going to be packed with cars.
So what will have to happen is we'll have to clear that queue as they release the traffic from our site. And I'm not going to belittle the fact that it's a complicated issue. It's something that we are working hand in hand with the county on to make sure that the signal is designed to minimize any impact along Mill Street and along Franklin.
What else?
I think it is possible.
You're the traffic expert, I'm not, and I don't think it's possible. Now, when you're coming out of this complex, why can't you just have a right-hand turn only? No traffic light, just a right-hand turn.
So you're saying just a right out here?
Yeah. They come out?
Well, that precludes anybody that wants to travel to the north and east of the site to be able to return. So if we can't make the left out of here, you can't travel north on Franklin or the points that are north and east of us.
Can I ask one question? What development could go on this site that wouldn't affect the traffic? No matter what you propose, it's going to have some impact on traffic. It's not perfect, and there may be problems. And they have to be adjusted. I see a few problems that I haven't even brought up. That's not the point. You either have to consider that site undevelopable, and we'll just let it sit there, or we have to, what are you going to put there? What can we put there?
Why is it undevelopable? When
no
Hoffman, LaRoche, and Juergens were there, they had thousands of employees, and they had the main gate in front on Washington Avenue. I didn't see no traffic light while Juergens sat there,
It's almost not possible.
while Hoffman, LaRoche sat there, and people came out at Juergens and made the right and left.
So you propose no lights there? Just let
I think the light's going to be, one, a traffic hazard, and it's going to cause accidents.
And look, as our consultant stated, Franklin Avenue is a county road, so the ultimate determination of whether the traffic light will be installed and whether it's warranted will be the county. So if they find that it's not warranted, then the traffic light will not be installed.
If you didn't have a light there, you couldn't make a left if you were heading north on Franklin.
That's correct.
You wouldn't have access to get in there
That's correct.
coming north, because you'd have to cross the double yellow. I was thinking of that before. What did Hoffman and Roche do? They used to just cross the double yellow?
Yeah, well, they do it all over, up and down Washington Avenue. Nobody pays attention to that law. God, you can't find anybody that pays attention to double yellow.
Are there any other questions for the traffic? Yes, Mr. Walsh.
Your calculations so far on the traffic and what's anticipated, is that only for these two buildings?
That's correct.
So you're not in...
So we would have to conduct further studies once we develop the full parcel. it's my opinion that, and we will be looking at designing the traffic signal in order to handle the full amount of the traffic.
Right, but you don't know what's going in there,
We've-
so you don't know what the traffic, is going to be from those other uses.
That's correct.
It could be more than what you're considering, so you could even need more roads,
If we,
entering and exiting the property.
I don't think we'd have any other access points. As a traffic engineer, I like to minimize the access points along the roadway as long as they can handle them. But as we build out the rest of the site, when we figure out what's coming on there, we'll absolutely have to conduct analyses, and if there are further improvements that are required, we'd have to accommodate them.
And every time there's a new use that's going to be proposed on the site, we will be back before this board for seeking site plan approval, and traffic will come into that testimony and proofs that we submit on the record.
No, I realize that, I just wanted to, on the record, that the trips that we're talking about do not anticipate any of the future developments.
That's correct.
Most of our questions are traffic related and a lot of concerns. Maybe this board would want to consider a traffic expert of our own.
Who's gonna pay for it? You?
The applicants.
Well, that, but, and like he said, this traffic is just those two buildings. God knows what else they're gonna put up there. They put a gas station, they put a Burger King and all, then it's gonna be haywire.
So maybe that's something this board would consider.
I hear your concerns with respect to the traffic and ingress and egress. I just remind the board that all the uses that we're proposing are permitted uses. Therefore, the council did consider the traffic generation that's generated from the site when they adopted those ordinances. We also are on Franklin Avenue, which is a county road, and we have jurisdiction over what can occur in and out of the site, as well as the traffic signal. What we have today before you are low trip generating uses. As far as any sort of future concerns of traffic, we will, like I said before, we will be before this board again with additional site plan applications that will address those. So today, what we have before you is two uses, a low generating self-storage use as well as a pharmacy use.
I see most of our board questioning traffic. I see some audience concerned out there because I see them moving around as soon as we discuss traffic. So I'll ask one more time if this board desires to get a traffic expert so all our concerns can be quelled down. Does anybody want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Lois, would you hold the floor?
Mrs. Overmyer,
Yes.
Councilman Kennedy,
Yes.
Mr. Conti,
Yes.
Mr. Walsh,
Yes.
Mr. Bowe,
No.
Mr. Sinania,
Same.
Ms. Rico.
I mean, I see a way to alleviate the future problems, but it would be at some cost, because you have to widen that road and make turn lanes, so that you would still have 2 lanes of traffic going through in both directions, and turn lanes in the center. Or if you were headed south in the right lane, so that traffic, because I see the problem, if you're making a right off from Mill headed south, you're gonna hit a red light, because it is going to be red. Now, how many cars could back up between that right-hand turn on Mill and that light is limited. So, the only way I could see to alleviate it would be to widen the road and put turn lanes in. I don't see how. If there was a Wawa gas station there, that would be just, I don't disagree, anybody who lives in town knows that that's a tough corner now. And obviously, we want to develop it and improve it.
No, I wouldn't believe
Yeah,
that.
but I don't even see how the county would want to allow that, because I have to agree with Mr. Kennedy. But I don't know what development you could put there that you wouldn't have the same impact. You're gonna have people, you're gonna have cars, and you're gonna have more traffic.
Council, do you have a traffic council you could share with the expert that we bring on?
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Did your expert do traffic counts at peak hours that we could share with our expert?
Yes.
And you and I could work on that. And is it the board's desire that we would have our township engineer have an expert from his office?
Absolutely.
I like Mr. Conti's suggestion, widen the road and put a turn lane in the middle. Don't put no traffic on. So you can make a right coming up, and then you put the other turn lane when they can turn in.
Mr. Di Lorenzo, you and I could arrange for that then? So-
Yes.
And you and I, council, will talk. You can email me that information.
I will. Procedurally, I know we're going to have to defer the traffic issue, but could we open up our other witnesses to questioning by the public so we can close them out and then just have our
Yes.
traffic expert left?
Yes. Let's do that then.
All right,
Yeah.
anyone from the public? Mr. Frantantoni?
Procedurally,
Well, the traffic expert, I'd like to...
Mr. Frantantoni?
what we're going to do, because we're creating a record, is we're going to have each person come up, be sworn in. Questions don't have to be on the rolls, but comments generally get wasted with questions. So we'll have each person come up and be sworn in, and you could make ask a question and a comment.
Okay, just for the record, I respectfully, once again, disagree with you, Mr. DiBiase. That's not the procedure. In fact,
you know what,
every
Mr.
witness should be
Frantantoni?
allowed to be questioned by the board and the public independently. That's the procedure that's been followed. The zoning board does it precisely. This board refused to do it. So you don't have to be sworn in to question witnesses. And you continue to violate the proper process.
We're
you
just
And I
trying to
want
get
the
it
record to
in.
show that.
Please sworn in, Mr. Frantantoni. He knows how we run this.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
State your name and address, please.
Vincent Frantantoni, 129 Mount Prospect Avenue, Belleville. The traffic expert, first, there's going to be future development there. And maybe you're not the proper person to ask this, I'll ask somebody else, the architect and all. But Mill Street is very congested, as several of the board members said. You can't go there. Franklin Avenue too. For the record, as early as 10 o'clock this morning, I had a doctor's appointment at 5 Franklin with Dr. Parks. My wife and I left about 10:40. Over 4 minutes could not get out of 5 Franklin to make a left turn. The light turns red, cars start, and in reality, you know, whatever you propose, but the average person does not care about the next person. So the red light, like Claramas, and they just backed up, so I couldn't even get out of the driveway. And I'm trying to tell somebody, stop, I'm trying to get out to make a left turn. 4 minutes, that's a long time to exit the driveway, I'm Franklin Avenue. Meanwhile, the cars are backing up and backing in, at least 5 cars backing up. So that's an existing problem already. But there's 18 acres there. Would it be, it's practical, would it be possible, and for the developer, and by the way, just also for the record, we the taxpayers of Belleville have a big financial interest in that property. So would it be possible to take a 10-foot piece of property on the Mill Street side, make Mill Street wider, so that would be an exit lane when you're coming out, and it wouldn't be into the lane of traffic coming out of there, and also to give the town of Belleville another 10 feet on Franklin Avenue. Make that wider for an access. If anybody wants to go into that complex, that there would be a lane added in addition to the regular southbound lane of Franklin Avenue. Take 10 feet of that 18-acre property. So anybody want to go into it could get out of the lane of traffic and get into that lane to enter the property.
In the analysis that we did, it essentially showed that it wasn't necessary to have that additional lane to handle the traffic coming to the site. So it's not something that we considered.
All right, well, because some board members make this future development. We're going to have 18 acres of development there, which I'm glad to see. But we want a property. And the other question would be, I think it would be a practical thing to design that as an office park. contemplating future development, why don't we make one entrance where you're gonna put the light on, and build some roads in there, so that we limit the development to the properties around the roads that we're gonna build in there. So all the people going to any other future development there would have internal roads maintained by that property in there. So you can control who goes in and out. Once you go in there, everybody has to come out that main entrance. But there would be internal roads inside the 18 acre to direct people to the various projects that are going to be built in there.
I think the internal roadway network, that's the intent. It's why we have the slightly circuitous route through, one, to discourage cut-through traffic, but also to allow for the future development. We anticipate this being the spine road through the project, essentially running north-south through the property, so that as it gets developed, there is that internal roadway network.
So, well, again, as Mr. Kennedy stated, I know the problems there, like I said, just experienced it this morning. And I would suggest that at this point, before we go any further development, we take some property to make Mill Street and Franklin Avenue a little wider. As part of our property, give it up so we can have it.
I mean, to the point of the difficulty getting out on the Franklin Avenue, that's why we are proposing the traffic signal, because it is a difficult thing to make an unsignalized turnout on Franklin Avenue given the volume. And then we determined based on the development that we would need that signal as the development grew to be able to allow our vehicles to safely exit the site.
Well, and again, as far as taking the property, I don't know if that's your purview, but whoever is that, give us township extra property. That's not yours. My other question was to the architect, if I can ask him a question. So I saw your design there, and I'm glad to see it building go up. It's a low intensive use, and I accept that. The problem is, looking at your design, you got these horizontal panels.
On the storage building.
Right, on the storage building. The fear I had, it looked very much like Xanadu on Route 3.
I can assure you it has no correlation with that.
But I mean, the horizontal panels just got that in my mind, and the governor called it the ugliest
And
building.
they were multicolored, and they were done through a computer.
So would it be possible to make it look more like a residential or office building? Could we have some maybe vertical, even mock windows in there? The vertical rather than those panels, because the minute I saw that, I said, man, that looks like that. So,
You hurt me bad.
well, it's just a recommendation, so we have something that does not look like
I
that.
will certainly discuss that with Michael next time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other?
Swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Yes.
Please state your name and address.
Mary Higgins, 148 Brighton Avenue, Belleville. I live within 200 feet of this project. My family has lived on Brighton Avenue since 1905, so I have situational awareness. I don't know, in your traffic analysis, I hope you look up the number of traffic accidents that happen at the intersection of Mill Street and Franklin. Since the Second River is there, I've seen cars go over into the Second River. In fact, there was a tragedy near Naninas last year. There was an abandoned car left there. There's accidents there all the time. As Mr. Frantantoni said, you have to wait 5 or 6 traffic lights to make a turn, not even to make a turn, to go straight at the intersection of Franklin and Mill Street. Plus, with the development a couple of years ago of the age-restricted 55 and above senior housing, also situated at the corner of Franklin and Mill Street, it has increased the traffic incredibly. On Mill Street, there's a blind curve heading down to Franklin Avenue, and there's a driveway there to accommodate the renters of the 55 and above age-restricted housing. Are you familiar with that?
I am. I'm familiar with the
Okay.
driveway, yes.
Has anybody actually even gone to the Belleville Police and pulled the records of the traffic accidents that happened there?
At that driveway, no, I have not.
You haven't?
I have not, no.
Well, why not?
Why? Because when we located our driveway, we wanted to make sure that we weren't at that pine curve. We wanted to make sure that we gave the site visibility necessary for our patrons to exit the site and make a decision, be able to see up and down Mill Street, and make the turn safely.
So you're saying that won't increase the vehicular congestion?
I'm saying the amount of traffic associated with this project currently, you won't notice the difference on Mill Street.
So could you give me an approximate number of how many cars will be ingressing and egressing?
Along Mill Street, we anticipate...
No, not on Mill Street, on here.
Of the whole project?
Okay, yes,
Currently?
approximately.
About 45 during the busiest hour of the site.
Well, I'm telling you, even if there's 10, that's a massive increase according to what's going through there now. It can't handle it. It cannot handle it. All right, plus the other problem is, are you aware of the way the road turns through Belleville Park, well, Bridgeford Park, but that section is Belleville? All right, are you aware of the way the street meanders?
Yes.
It's not a straight street. That's one of the main thoroughfares in Belleville. You know, Belleville has the park here, then it has the golf course. So we're limited to Belleville Avenue and Mill Street to get from one end of Belleville to the other. That causes so much traffic congestion there. Are you aware of that?
I'm aware of the traffic that travels along Franklin Avenue and Mill Street and through that area. Yes.
All right, so I just want to state that I cannot understand how increasing traffic, and you cannot say that it won't be noticeable.
Well, I mean...
How can you say that?
45 cars during the busiest hour is about a car every minute and a half. So, I mean, like, essentially, you aren't going to
Can
notice
you
that traffic.
guarantee that number of cars, 45?
I can't guarantee it based upon my expert opinion and the studies done by the Institute of Transportation Engineers.
So
That's
is it
what-
possible there'll be 100 cars?
I mean, it's conjecture.
Is
I
it
can't answer
possible?
that question.
Is it possible?
Excuse me, Mary.
Based on the analysis that we have, I would say no.
Excuse me,
But
Mary.
is it possible? Yes or no?
I can't really answer that question.
Excuse me, I'm talking to him. You sit down.
Mary.
Is it possible?
Mary, our traffic expert that we're going to be hiring, that we just did, will make sure that all these things are going to be addressed. That's why we're doing this, because we feel...
Well, you know what? They don't live in Belleville. My family's lived here since 1905 on Brighton Avenue. This is right back of our house. I have to take Mill Street and Franklin every single day, and all I'm asking is for consideration. Thank you.
Any other questions, Mr. Fucci?
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Please state your name and address.
Richard Mafucci, 61 Continental. I probably have questions for all the experts, so it's not going to be in any particular order. Assessment, recycling pickup would be picked up how often?
It was, the cardboard is on an as,
What's your name again?
Chris Richter.
Thank you.
Sorry.
The cardboard is on an as-needed basis. It could be as little as once a month and maybe every once a week.
And was it that they would be in dumpsters, the cardboard?
Not for CVS. There's containers, compactors.
Outdoors?
Yes.
They'd be stored outdoors?
Yeah.
So they would be expensive.
Yeah, no, it's stored in the compactor. So it's
One-
enclosed.
Well, I need one person testifying at a
It's-
time.
It's in a compactor that's enclosed. It's weatherproof.
Okay. I've lived in Belleville for 70 years now. That is very close to a high crime area of another locality, another town, just for the record. So security would be an issue, no matter what you state. And I agree, cameras wouldn't change that. Okay, got where the Mill Street exit is. The north side of the storage building, are there any shrubs there? Because that would be most visible to the housing across the street. I don't see any on yours.
Brett Scaponetz and engineering. Well, we do, I realize that on that north side,
Yeah.
on the north side, there is a significant the grade there is much higher.
Right.
And we have,
Which will make it more
Residential
visible.
on the residential side, you're talking on the residential side? On the residential
The
side?
apartments. And the buildings
Apartments.
across Mill Street.
So you're on the north side. So there's existing vegetation that's along there now on the hillside, and there's a significant change in grade from that level of street up to the top of 10, 15 feet. So,
So you'll be sticking a 4-story building there.
understood, yes.
I just meant any shrubs at all, just to make
Okay.
it not all building.
Yeah, we don't propose any shrubs on that side.
Also, to the west of the driveway that goes out to Mill Street,
Uh-huh.
I see, now are those shrubs or trees?
Those are existing trees. There are existing trees that are along that side of the roadway.
I don't know how much the space is, but where the unit is, could you possibly plant some tall trees that will grow tall so that the residents won't see the building?
We're already proposing that. There already is a mix of deciduous and evergreen trees that are planted all along that side, that west face of the building.
All right. As far as the additional traffic light, people have been clamoring, I know this is not your area, for a traffic light across from the ShopRite on Washington Avenue, which is a state road. And I think almost every time the state says no because it's too close to the traffic light at Graylock Parkway, which is a much longer distance than what you're proposing here. I just wanted to be aware of that. And yes, you know it's a county road. Okay. I'm sorry. Oh, as far as the traffic on Mill Street, if you're coming through the park towards Franklin Avenue, that backs up horrendously. Also, tractor trailers use that to come across town because it avoids the hills on Belleville Avenue or Gerald or Graylock. So that adds to it. Also, you have all your roadways laid out. Any provision where you would put snow that you plow?
I mean, at this point, under this development, we have plenty of area to get it off the roadway. So I would envision in some
Not
of
with
this,
all those trees, you know.
I mean, there's plenty of cleared area that's going to be through this to be able to pilot within the area that is still to be developed.
And once it's developed, you won't have that area.
Once we get to that point, a snow removal plan will have to be put in place in an area possibly dedicated for that, or it'll be hauled off the site.
Okay, my notes were all screwed up, so I may have forgotten things, but thank you.
Is there anyone, Mr. Gargano?
Will you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Your name and address.
Jerry Del Gershio, 8 Grove Street in Belleville. Where is the current driveway that comes out onto Franklin Avenue?
In the same location as where the signal is.
Okay. And what is this other driveway going to be used for?
This driveway here?
Yes.
Would be a right turn in and a right turn out driveway to feed the pharmacy.
Right turn in and a right turn out, not to come out.
You could make a right, now you'd be able to make a right turn out to go southbound on Franklin Avenue. Or you
Okay.
could make a right turn in from southbound Franklin Avenue. But we
Okay.
would prohibit all the left turns, forcing them to the proposed traffic signal.
All right. Now, if this is going to be a very less intensive use right now, what do you need a light for?
The light, as we've heard from some of the other the residents, making a left out on Franklin Avenue is difficult.
Well, it's
Right.
difficult when that was open as a Jergens too, as Mr. Kennedy said. But you're talking about a very light use compared to hundreds of workers that were there before.
If I could answer that.
And they used to leave at the same time because of their hours.
Just state your name.
Chris Richter. It's actually a very valid point. We are committed to getting a traffic signal at this property because we know at full build out we need it. For these two uses on the site, the traffic consultant can chime in, but We don't need it. There is a distinction that we would actually, depending upon where we go with this discussion, to say, under this particular phase, which is these two uses, the certificate of occupancy, if we're so lucky to get this board's vote, would not be contingent upon the construction of the traffic signal, but at some milestone, it triggers the need for that signal.
Well, why don't we deal with it then? Because that way the board would know what they're looking at.
Well, just hear me out. The traffic signal, we think, is an asset to this project. I think when we get through all the traffic issues, everyone's going to understand that this project at full build-out, what the mayor and council envisioned when they adopted the redevelopment plan was density on this project. And it absolutely needs a traffic signal.
What do you mean density?
The overall build-out of the project.
You're talking about residential?
No, just square footage.
You're using the word density, that's why I'm asking the question.
Density relates to commercial yields.
So you're saying that commercial yields are going to be so big that it's going to need a traffic light?
Absolutely.
Are you familiar with Belleville?
Yes.
Are you familiar with Washington Avenue? I'm asking.
We're here today, yes.
Oh, you're here today?
I've been here 20 times.
I'll ask your traffic expert. Are you familiar with Washington Avenue in Belleville?
I'm familiar.
Okay. Do you know the ShopRite shopping center on Washington Avenue? The giant parking lot it is, that when it's busy, it's filled to capacity?
Yes,
And Washington Avenue is a state road, and it's a very busy road, and it's at a curve. And there's McDonald's right across the street, which is very busy, and yet there's no traffic light there. And the state has refused to put a traffic light there, has been testified to. So why would this need it so bad?
Honestly, I
County
can't,
is the person.
I
I
can't
don't mean to interrupt, but isn't it through the county?
well, the county was looking at, and we would be discussing it with the county because it's that road. I can't speak to the volumes. I haven't analyzed the intersection of ShopRite or Washington Avenue. I'm familiar with the roadways in the area, but I can't speak to the volumes that are out there.
Have you did studies of how many cars are currently using this corner
Yes,
during the rush hour, in the morning
yes,
and in the evening?
Yes.
You've done that?
yes,
And your feeling is that a light is needed,
yes.
but not currently, after further development, it has been said?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Now, as was mentioned by Mr. Conti, Mill Street gets all the way back up the hill during the rush hour. If the light is green, when the light is green at Mill and Franklin going north and south, it would have to be red when the cars come down, when the light changes at Mill, to coordinate the same way.
For a portion of it, yes.
Everything would get jammed up.
That's not actually accurate. What would happen is there's much less demand coming out of our site to need the green time as compared to what's on Mill. So while a portion of the time, as Mill was exiting green and you were turning onto Franklin, it would be red. You'd actually have more green time along the Franklin corridor at our signal, and so it won't back up. You know, it's something that we have to look at very closely with the county to ensure that that doesn't happen. But I'm fully confident that given the timing that we anticipate necessary for our driveway, that we can coordinate it to allow the traffic to flow freely along Franklin Avenue and not back up through this adjacent intersection or to the hospital.
Now, currently, the corner property, which is the drugstore, whatever the name of the drugstore is going to be, you're having it all the way to the corner, correct?
That's correct.
And I don't know about Mill Street, but I know Franklin Avenue is a county road. I'm not sure about Mill.
It's not, no.
It's not a county road. If the county wanted to expand the corner, as it did at, although those were both county roads, Belleville Avenue and Franklin Avenue, which made traffic much, much better, wouldn't you need part of that corner?
I can't speak to that. I can tell you when we met with the county and discussed this project, an overall project, there was no mention whatsoever of any additional widening of Franklin Avenue. And we have had, no,
So you're going to put a light there without no additional wire?
that's correct. That's
Or you want to put a light there with no additional?
That's what's proposed.
Okay. Well, the last thing I would say is, and this is the board, you're hiring a traffic expert. You do not coordinate with him. He runs his own report. You want an independent report, and then compare his report with your report. To have a coordinator, you're going to get one report. And that doesn't mean it's gonna be accurate, because he'll be using his figures, okay, of what he found when they did this traffic study on whatever days was involved.
Yeah,
We had a similar case with McDonald's, and we hired our own, under Mr. Herritz's department, by the way.
Well, that's
Let's make that clear. We agree with you, it's gonna be an independent report, but we're gonna run our own traffic counts, and then I would like our traffic counts compared with their traffic counts, and that's the only reason why they sent them all.
Okay,
Thank
because you mentioned the coordination, that's why.
Thank you.
The last question I have.
I thought that was your last question.
No, I'm talking about the next witness. Whoever the first witness was, because you brought this issue up. The first person testified, said that they want to subdivide these properties, separate properties, and that they did not intend to sell them. But isn't it true that once they're subdivided, they would have the power to sell them individually? Am I correct?
Yes.
Okay, just want that cleared up. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Do I have a second to close the public hearing?
Second.
If I could, Madam Chair, Chris Richter, the development manager, would like to address the board for a minute.
Thank you. We are 100% committed to working with, funding and providing that kind of stuff. I would like to at least have a discussion on what's on the plan right now as it relates to traffic. And wishful thinking maybe, but talk about the ability to move this project forward with these two minor uses as it relates to what the ultimate goal is. These two projects, the self-storage and the pharmacy, are not the issue as it relates to traffic. What's the issue is the full build-out, and we're going to have to come up with some type of yield, speculative yield on what this project is, and give that information to traffic consultant. The traffic consultant isn't going to get very far without us telling you what our ultimate build-out is. What we'd like to do is get this project done. We've got millions of dollars of infrastructure to build here. We've got winter coming up. We'd like to get moving on this project. And I think I'm hoping that the board can see that we have roughly 3.5 acres of 18 acres that are shown in the development plan with the infrastructure to support the project. What I'd like to propose is that the board sees fit to approve the application with the specific condition that your traffic engineer will review this particular plan to make sure that this board is comfortable with the fact that you're not digging yourself into a hole by approving something that's going to come back to you and be problematic in the future. We're 100% comfortable accepting such a condition that allows that approval to take place, that the infrastructure we have in the drawings, the roadway widths, the locations, everything is more than adequate for these two uses, and that as we move forward, we advance this traffic discussion, because clearly we need to get this board comfortable. And I'm hoping that just these two uses doesn't trigger a major concern that we can work through this, move the project forward, and continue to address that issue.
Well, I think this board is committed to this project. We'd like to see it redeveloped. The concerns are traffic, so we would like to anticipate what's going to be happening here and that we do it right. I don't know about anybody else.
I would just say that if a remedy would be that the road could be widened, if you start your improvement, you might inhibit that. In other words, if we approved you and you started to build out that corner and the traffic was worse than we all anticipated and the remedy might be a turn lane, we wouldn't be able to put it in.
But the solution to that is that a condition of the approval is that you get a traffic engineer to bless this particular plan, which has, I'm going to say, the minimum traffic impact, and I understand you're not a traffic consultant here, but we've all been around enough to understand
No,
self-storage.
but my point being, not this part of the project, phase 1, but when phase 2 or phase 3 comes and the traffic impact would then be more severe, the remedy of a turn lane would be diminished because you already built out the corner.
No, we're not building anything until those issues are addressed. It's a condition of the approval of the traffic consultant. And if the end result is right away, we have room to dedicate right away. This plan, we're not building up to the corner. There's plenty of room here. If there's a right away dedication required at some point in time, we have room built in the plan to accommodate that.
That corner's a bad corner. I think this board is, as we say, is the yes board. So this is the first time I've been on the board for quite a few years that I've seen an issue come up like this, where I think we're all a little concerned, because in reality, we all drive it, that's a tough corner. You could sit on those streets for 10 minutes before you get through to Franklin. It's bad, it really is. And so, and I said before, anything that you do on this site is gonna cause some impact, so obviously we wanna develop it, but we don't wanna make traffic on that corner worse than it already is. I mean, you have, give you an example, you have a major catering hall diagonally across from there. If they're having a big event, and they do often, at an early hour, you can't get through there. So it's a tough corner, it just is. And I think I would be comfortable approving anything once we can really feel comfortable that, you know, the town's not gonna come after us with pitchforks because we approved such a thing. The council didn't then just approve it because we approved it, thinking that we did our due diligence.
To make the suggestion, I'd like to take a 5-minute recess to convene with council
What?
about what we're doing and how we're going to proceed. So, let's make a motion.
Make a motion for a 5-minute recess.
Second.
We'll be back.
Actually, I think the motion has to be to go into executive session, because there's a question that the board would like to ask me, and then I'll report back to you with the
Then
question.
I just choose that the executive session be kept to those items that can be discussed in closed session, and not those items that need to be discussed in front of the board. Thank you.
That's your...
I'd like to call the meeting back into order.
The board asked me to go through some procedural hypotheticals with them, and we've gone through those issues. Substance was not discussed. And I understand that you and I had a conference, and then you know that we're going to expedite the traffic studies so that you will have them in enough time for the next meeting. And also, if you just bring back your traffic expert next week, the board is satisfied that all other issues have been satisfactorily handled. And I'll just ask you, Counselor, to waive any applicable time periods.
We do. Can I just have the date of the October meeting?
October 12th.
So this hearing would be scheduled for October 12th at 7 p.m. in this chambers with no further notice required?
That's correct. I just need you to waive all applicable time periods.
We do. And as far as, just to make it clear for the record, all the testimony has been completed. There will be no further opportunity for public comment or questioning of our professionals, but for the traffic engineer.
And that's because we've accomplished all those other areas with your witnesses.
Thank you. And then we could consent to the adjournment.
Yes, Mr. Chairman?
Selectman, you're our next applicant on DB 2017-05.
We need the rest of
That bathroom's locked, so you gotta, oh yeah, all right.
Mr. Conti go to the men's room?
Yes, he did. He'll be right back.
do, we could pre-mark these exhibits to save some time.
Good.
Okay, we have PB 2017-05, 187 Main Street, block 9406, lots 11 and 12. Construct a 7,120 square foot building for warehouse and shipping. Creates also office space.
Good evening, my name is William Haggerty, I'm from the firm of Dolan and Dolan, here on behalf of the applicant this evening. The property is in the DF zone, it's the type of use we're proposing the warehouse use. As indicated, to be a 7,120 square foot warehouse and shipping facility for shipping containers. The office space that is proposed would be exclusive to the operator of the facility. There'd be 2 loading docks and 3 employee spaces, minimum traffic generation. The proprietor is going to talk about that in his experience in just a minute. 12 parking spaces are required, 3 are provided, we'll go into why that would be appropriate. Minimum rear yards, 15. We propose 5, and we'll explain why that would be appropriate. The loading dock dimensions aren't what the ordinance calls for, and we'll explain why it is appropriate again. And the parking within 5 feet of the property line will deal in that. So I'd like to call the proprietor.
Do you swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Please state your name and address.
Ilan Servadio, Ilan spelled I-L-A-N, Servadio S-E-R-V-A-D-I-O, 22 Ridge Road, Concord, New Hampshire, 88301.
You're a contract purchaser of this property,
Correct.
and the contract is contingent upon the approvals from this board, is that right?
Correct.
And you have run and operated facility similar to the facility that you proposed tonight, is that right?
Correct.
And for how long have you been involved in that type of operation?
In the last 25 years, I'm now the owner of a business that exists 36 years, running basically the same thing. This is an international relocation business, which practically is like a moving company, but moving people in and out of the country, their possession. We receive goods, unload them, bring them to the customer home, or pick up from the customer home and pack it in containers and ship it overseas. Most of our load, more than 50% of our load, are done at the customer home, not done at the facility. Very little portion of our operation is done really at the warehouse. At the warehouse we do some trading, we do some packing, wrapping, and loading of containers or unloading of containers. The traffic engineer will talk later about how often and how much trucks are running, but it's not that often. Our normal business operates from 8 to 4 o'clock, Monday through Friday.
And is that what you would propose here, 8 to 4, Monday to Friday?
That's the normal business hours, yes. Where most of our clientele are Jews, so we, in respect to the Jewish tradition, normally Fridays we even close at earlier time. Normally we cease operation in the winter at 2 o'clock in the afternoon.
Do you have customers come to the site?
Very rarely. modern age where everybody internet versed, we hardly see customers.
And how many employees would you have?
We on a normal basis have 4 employees, and I provide them with a vehicle to bring them in and out of the site on once a day, basically.
And you propose, there's 2 lots here, you propose to combine the 2 lots as a single lot?
Well, yes. I
Okay.
see no
Because
reason
the
to keep it
operation
just
is
two
on the
separate.
entire combined
Correct.
site.
Correct.
I'd like to call our architect if you don't have any questions for this witness.
Does he mean shipping containers that they put on the boats?
Excuse me?
What kind of containers do you mean? Shipping
Shipping
containers?
containers, yes.
I
do.
Your name and address, please.
Scott Abramowitz, West Orange, New Jersey. My mailing address is P.O. Box 708, Orange, New Jersey.
Tell the board a little bit about your background.
I'm an architect in New Jersey, also New York and Pennsylvania. I've been licensed since 1982, and practiced since 1987. My office has been in Belleville for about 5 years, 10 years ago, and I've been before this board before.
I make a motion
Accept
to
your
the
witness
next.
as an expert.
Okay. And did you assist in preparing these plans?
Yes, I did.
Okay, could you, we've pre-marked this plan as A1, and this is a copy of the site plan?
This is the site plan, and it's basically showing, this is the warehouse area of about 4,000 square feet. And this is the accessory offices, which is 2 stories plus a mezzanine at the 2nd floor of about 2,600 square feet. There's an entrance into the office area here, which is an accessible entrance. And we also are providing a handicap ramp that will come up into the loading dock area, which will also provide access to the warehouse as well as to the office area. The traffic engineer will discuss how the trucks are moving in and out, but basically the building was designed primarily to accommodate the traffic, the maneuvering requirements of the trucks that come in here. We have dumpster locations off to the side here, which will be fenced in, and landscaping around the perimeter. We have 5-foot setbacks. Technically, we're requiring a variance for this setback because technically it's still 2 lots. So we don't have the rear yard setback, but if it became a single lot, we would need that variance.
And that becomes a side yard.
And that
by
becomes a
ordinance
side
7.
yard, this is a side yard, and then you have a 15-foot front yard all around.
And do you have residences around the property?
There's a dwelling here, and a dwelling here, and off back in this corner, there's a large industrial building.
Do you have any windows or doors or entries into the building along the property line adjacent to the residentially used properties?
We have one exit out here, which actually is in front of the house. And then there are no other openings.
Just solid wall.
Just solid wall.
Do you propose any landscaping around at all?
All the green shows landscaping, and we have a landscape plan that goes into detail as to what the landscaping is.
And the loading zones, there would be 2 loading zones?
There's 2 loading docks here, and they partially come underneath the 2nd floor of the office area.
And are those appropriate in dimension based upon?
Well,
the
they're in length, they're 45 feet, which is in compliance with requirements, but they're 11 feet in width, and they require 12 feet. We had to shorten it because we were approaching into the setback. So we shortened it a foot each, and he only really needs 8 feet for his containers. So there's plenty of room for the loading.
How about any lighting?
Yes, there's lighting, and we have a lighting plan that was provided in the set, and I think the engineer will discuss that in more detail.
And the building itself would be an open building, is that basically?
Well, the warehouse would be an open building, and then these would be offices for the...
And we have A2, which shows...
This gives a graphic representation of what the building may look like. This is the warehouse area. It'll basically be blank walls because it'll be all warehouse use. And then this is the office area, will be more of a residential scale or a small commercial building scale with punched out windows There'll be a signage on both sides of each street, a small sign, I think it's 2 by 10. This shows the loading dock as you're coming in underneath the building.
Board have any questions? Yes, witness? We'll call our engineer.
Nicola Marucci, that's N-I-C-O-L-A.
You gotta speak up into the mic, I can't hear you. I'm sitting right next to you.
N-I-C-O-L-A, Marucci, M-A-R-U-C-C-I, 116, Whippany Road, Whippany, New Jersey.
Could you give the benefit of your background to the board?
Yes. I have a bachelor's degree in civil engineering from the University of Delaware, which I earned in 2005. I have a bachelor's degree in surveying engineering technology from the New Jersey Institute of Technology, which I earned in 2011.
I know we accept him as a witness, but he's gonna have to talk louder. You gotta project yourself.
I have
Barely hear you.
I apologize for that. I earned my bachelor's degree in civil engineering in 2005 from the University of
I move
Delaware.
we take it as a profession, we did that already.
You're currently licensed.
Currently, I'm licensed in the state of New Jersey as a professional engineer and a professional land surveyor.
We'll accept your witnesses.
Now, you've seen the site plan, is that right?
Yes.
That was A1?
Our office did prepare a site plan. And I
And you're looking at A1, is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
And could you indicate to the board issues or potential issues in regard to drainage and how they've been addressed?
Currently, the site is undeveloped. It's mainly grass. With this proposed White House building and parking lot, there will be added impervious coverage. If I could just flip to the engineering site plan.
Now, you're looking at a portion of the site plan that was submitted with the application.
Correct. Yes.
And you're looking at
Sheet C.
C2, and if we can reference it that way.
Okay. The proposed development is the warehouse building and the parking lot. We are proposing to take the additional runoff from the impervious surfaces for the building, tie them into 4 dry wells that are beneath the surface of the parking lot. But we've also added in the parking spaces here 2 type B catch basin inlets to collect the water off the surface runoff from the parking lot. Additionally, the driveway entrance on Main Street would have a trench drain to collect any additional runoff from this portion of the lot. Currently, the lot, as it exists today, slopes from the northwest down to the southeast. We will not be changing that the drainage pattern per se, but we will be collecting any additional runoff and infiltrating it through the driveway system.
Are you aware that the site was previously used as a gas station?
Yes.
Okay, and are there any changes in the ingress or egress to the site proposed?
No, these 2 driveway openings exist as it is today.
So they'll remain.
They'll remain.
Are there any other engineering concerns that you've addressed or want to bring to the board's attention?
There was one comment about the parking space, 2 parking spaces, and we do feel that we could lengthen the parking spaces to accommodate that comment from the township engineer.
Sufficient area to do that?
Correct. No further engineering issues.
I have no further questions for the engineer.
Did you check and make sure the gas tanks are out on that property?
Yes, we have a no further action letter on that one.
Yeah, all right.
We're good. Thank you for that. Call the traffic engineer if there's no questions.
Well, that was my only question, the gas tanks.
Okay, thank you for that.
Do you swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Please state your name and address.
My name is Lee, middle initial D as in
He
Daniel.
knows how to do it.
Klein, K-L-E-I-N.
Yeah.
I'm a professional engineer in the state of New Jersey, as well as New York, Pennsylvania, and Delaware. I'm also a nationally certified professional traffic operations engineer.
I make a motion we approve his credentials.
I'd like to just finish, let him finish. I'd like to hear what
All right.
I've been accepted as an expert in traffic engineering and parking analysis before over 75 boards. I've also been the board's expert in many cases for a review of traffic and parking issues.
Thank you, we'll accept you with this.
Thank you.
Draw your attention to the site plan.
Certainly.
And could you help the board, we're looking at sheet exhibit A1, I think.
Sure, I can put that first. I was going to, actually, I can go to,
Is that less helpful?
yeah, no, yeah, I'll go right to the truck turning.
Okay.
I'm looking at sheet T1, the last sheet of the plan set. That's the sheet that prepared under my supervision. What this shows is the pattern for the trucks that will be coming in and out of the facility. We've designed the site so that it will be a right turn entrance only on southbound Main Street to come into the site. In order for a truck to be able to do that, they need to be able to pull through the site. And again, that's why Mr. Abramowitz said we sort of chamfered off the front corner of that building. They pull in, they pull up to about the edge of the curb, and then they're able to back into the loading dock areas.
And then they'd exit
And when they're, right,
back
when,
on record.
right, and when a vehicle's ready to exit, they'll make the right turn out onto Rutgers. The all right turns in, right turns out. As Mr. Marucci said, we're going to look at the parallel parking spaces here. We're going to look at maybe increasing the radius on the end, maybe making it a little bit wider, putting a maneuver striped parking area in there, so when the first vehicle pulls in, they'll pull to the front, and then they'll actually be more than 23 feet for the second vehicle to maneuver in.
A little easier.
Correct, that's correct. We looked at the trip generation for a use like this. It's about 2 vehicle trips in the morning, 2 vehicle trips out in the afternoon, based on the office use. As my client had indicated to me, there would be no truck maneuvering in and out of the site between 7 and 9 in the morning, or 4 and 6 in the evening during the rush hour. It would be, all the work would be between 9 and 4, as the owner has indicated that. There was an issue in one of the comment letters from Mr. Heritz about maneuvering in and out of the site. Like I said before, all our vehicles are going to be entering southbound on Main Street, making the right turn in. When they leave, they'll make the right turn out. He mentioned something about not being able to make the left turns at any of the movements at this intersection, and he's correct. And what they sometimes do is, I guess, they'll come down one of the side streets and make like a near side jug handle and come down and around. Our vehicles are not going to do that. We're going to be coming down Main Street.
And that would be, you're saying 2 times, 2 vehicles per day?
No, well, the vehicles associated with the office would be about 2 trips coming in the morning peak hour to enter to get to the office, and then those people would leave at the end of the day. During the day, the container trucks would be about 3 during the peak times, about 3 during the middle of the day, during peak season, peak moving season, as he indicated.
So it's only 3 container
A
drives
day, correct, that's correct.
And
It's a small operation.
do you feel there's enough for that truck to come back to unload? There's enough room?
Yeah, that's what we're showing here. We're showing that the vehicle is pulling forward and either back, I'm sorry,
Then you would back into the
back
road.
into the loading space, right, and then when they're done with their container, then they can make the maneuver out.
What size trailer did you do your
That'll
calculation
be
based on?
50,
50-foot trailer?
50-foot wheelbase, yeah.
And that's what size trucks you utilize?
That's typically what my client told me the size of the trucks that they use, yes.
Do they come at the same time or all different times?
They're spread out throughout the day.
Yeah, you're
There's
not
only
gonna have 3 trucks there at one time?
No, there's
All
only
right.
2 loading docks as it is, yes.
All right.
You gonna park the trucks there overnight?
That I have to ask my client.
State your name.
Ilan Savadia. Sometimes the trailer stays overnight. The tractor trailer leave the place after parking it. But again, it's all inside. The site is gated, and if they stay overnight, I mean, there's no issue on my part. But we do have occurrences that the trailer will stay overnight.
Tractor too or no?
Normally, no. The tractor belongs
tractor
to
will
a
leave.
private, third party that they go with.
Very good. Thank you. No further questions of this witness?
I have one more question. What happens if there's two trailers coming in at the same time?
And Ilan Salvador. This is a small business and I control the flow of traffic. I mean, those containers, I cannot control UPS or the post office when they come to deliver a box or an envelope. But the tractor trailers, I control their arrival and departure. There's no reason for them to show up at the same time.
All right, it's about, for those on the board, I've experienced Bayard Street, and the neighbors went insane because there was so much of the trailers going into the street and not being able to move, and this is a high-traffic area, so I'm just looking to see possible future problems. So if you can
It is why we designed for 2 loading docks as opposed to 1. This size of warehouse in general doesn't require 2 loading docks, but exactly for this reason, we designed 2 loading docks, so if there is a situation where there are 2, there's space for it.
All right, so that wouldn't hinder the traffic at all if there were 2 deliveries at once?
I don't think that we should affect that, and again, this is not, I'm not setting up the business today. It's a business that runs for 36 years and it runs in a very similar pattern. So, and even when you heard 3 trailers coming in, when they was saying at a peak time, it means it's our peak season, which is the summer month. But once we hit September all the way to May, there may be 1 trailer a week. So it's not like 3 trailers in the peak hours of the day.
Thank you.
No more? Does anyone in the public have any questions of any of these witnesses? Mr. Fucci? Which one? Vinnie or Ann, you want to go first?
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Say your name.
Victor Fucci, 61 Continental. I couldn't hear an answer that possibly a tractor trailer would be there overnight?
Yes.
Possibly.
The trailer itself, the trailer itself would be parked, the tractor would take
Okay.
it.
And how high is the warehouse? Roughly.
37 feet.
So is it,
From floor to ceiling, it's a little higher at grade.
is it 1 story or 2? What's it?
The warehouse is 1 story,
Oh,
but it's tall.
yeah, so,
That's Mr. Obama who was speaking for the record.
okay, that was it.
Thank you. Mr. Frantantoni?
Swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do. I'm very happy to see this commercial development come to Belleville. I like the plan. I just have one concern. The house right next door on Rucker Street is a personal friend of mine. Near put shrubs in the back there. It's all the green. Right, so all that shrubs in back of the warehouse,
I don't believe the shrubs back there.
or
I
green,
think it's
whatever they
more.
are.
C3.
The plan set, sheet C3 shows the landscape and lighting.
Yeah, it's that first house there.
Correct.
On Rucker Street.
Yeah, it's got.
So, yeah, the only question I have is, with the vegetation, whatever it is, will it be maintained? Or because it's the back of this building, will it become a jungle for them to look at?
Well, it's grass back there, so yes, it'll be cut right in the
That's what I'm saying, be maintained. Yeah. Okay.
This time we'll close the public portion of the meeting.
Thank you.
Make a motion to close the public portion.
Second.
Meeting, public portion is closed. Does someone like to make a motion?
I make a motion that we approve it
I'll second it.
With the recommendations
with
of
the recommendations, the house, the the back of the building along Isabel's property be maintained by bushes or something and not become a jungle back there. And that, just, that's it.
And I'll second that.
Yeah, we're gonna include Mr. Herrick's recommendations and
And your report.
and Mr. DiLorenzo's
Everybody's
report
report,
also.
yes.
Yours too, Kevin.
Lois, can you call, the roll?
Mr. Manera,
Yes.
Mrs. Inalderado,
Yes.
Councilman Kennedy,
Yes.
Mr. Conti,
Yes.
Mr. Walsh.
Yes.
Mr. Bowe,
Yes.
Mr. Sinoia,
Yes.
Mr. Rico.
I'd like to thank the board members. I know you're volunteers. I know a lot of you work tomorrow and you stayed late to do this. It was important to my client.
Make a motion to close public hearing.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilman.
I make a motion to close the, Kevin made a motion. Meeting is adjourned.
Close the meeting.